Personal skills for agentic engineering are largely solved. We have markdown files, Git repos, npx, skills.sh. There's real tooling in a growing ecosystem around managing your own agent context. But what about organizational skills and the shared processes? The way that your team does code review, handles incidents, or writes documentation, the stuff that shouldn't be shared publicly. How do you govern and distribute those? Right now, the answer for most teams is a repo, and that means that your head of marketing needs a GitHub account in order to update the company's agent context. That's a problem. We ran into this problem at Sanity and built something to fix it. Today, we're going to take a look at why a repo is the wrong single source of truth for organizational skills, what to put upstream of it, and how a Sanity function connects it all to your agents. Personal skills are yours to manage however you'd like, but organizational skills are a little bit different. So let me show you what I mean. Here's a product launch skill that I use. The description at the top tells the agent when to load it, what our launch tiers are, the stakeholder roles, and has our pre-launch checklist. Now ask yourself, who should be able to update this? The head of marketing who owns and runs our launch process, the DevRel lead who owns the developer-facing content, the support manager who owns the help docs. None of them can touch this file without repo access. The repo's access model silently becomes the team's knowledge governance model. Right now, our agents still reference a 2-week lead time for Tier 2 launches. We changed that to 3 weeks after a rough launch last quarter, but nobody updated the file. So to change that one line, I need to remember what repo it's in, create a branch, open a PR, wait for a review, and then merge it, all for a markdown file, so it doesn't get updated. The people who notice the wrong lead time do mental substitution, and they know that the agent will say one thing when the policy is actually something different. They just work around it, and the next person who runs the agent doesn't have that context. That's where organizational knowledge disappears. A PR is the right gate for code, but skills aren't code. And the way that you manage them shouldn't be a developer workflow, it should be an editorial one. The workflow where you write something, update it when it changes, and then publish it. The person who owns the knowledge updates it, and it's live. So let's take a look at what we built. We're using Sanity internally for this exact use case. The schema is the foundation, and in this instance, we actually have two. We have one that's for the skill itself, and then because skills can also load reference files on demand for deeper context that only enters when the skill is needed, we have another. So this is a full model that has a second document type for those, but the core skill document is what we're going to take a look at today. Let's take a look at some of the fields. We have description, which is written for agents, not for humans, and it's how an agent decides whether the skill is relevant to the current task. So it's routing logic in plain language. We have owner, which is a reference to a person, not a string. If this field is empty, nobody is accountable for keeping this skill accurate. So when something changes in the launch process after a retro, this field has a name on it. And we have visibility, which is shareable or confidential. Your product launch and SOP probably has things in it that you don't want going out to the public: internal approval chains, stakeholder names, and pricing thresholds. So one field and the system knows the difference. Skills are content, content has a metadata, and metadata is how you govern at scale. With that schema in place, you load it into Sanity Studio. This is what the product launch skill looks like as a document. I can update the Tier 2 lead time right here, change the field, and hit publish. And notice this isn't a developer interface. Anyone you give Studio access can open this URL, make the edit themselves, and this means that your head of marketing, DevRel lead, and support manager can update the skill without needing a GitHub account. You define the schema once, and after that, the question stops being who has right access to this repo and becomes who should own this skill. So you publish your skill, but how does it actually get to your agents? We wrote a Sanity function, code that runs in response to a content event, to close this loop exactly. In this case, the event is the skill being published, the function watches for that, takes whatever changed, assembles the updated markdown, and commits it to a GitHub repo in one atomic operation. The commit includes the updated skill and any reference files it loads because a skill can be more than one file, and they all need to load together or the skill breaks mid-load. The commit also regenerates the marketplace and plugin manifests. These are files that register this repo with Claude and Cursor as their source of the skills. Claude finds the skills by reading the skills directory, so a new skill shows up automatically without anyone needing to update a config file. From there, the Claude org plugin picks it up. Within minutes of hitting publish in the studio, the skill is updated and lives in everyone's instance of Claude. We've updated the authoring experience with Sanity Studio and automated the sync with a Sanity function. Our repo is still there, but it stopped being the place that everyone has to go to. It's more of a distribution layer, the thing that gets the skill from Sanity to everyone's agent. Sanity sits upstream as the source of truth, and the repo handles the delivery. Now, after the last launch retro and the team decides that something needs to be changed, the head of marketing opens Studio, finds the product launch skill, and simply updates the line and hits publish. Minutes later, every agent running a launch planning session knows. And that's where organizational skills work, when the people who own the knowledge are the ones keeping it current, not one engineer who has access to the repo. Skills are living documents, and your organizations should be treated that way. Want a deeper look into how we build this internally at Sanity? Check out Knut's full blog post. I'll leave a link in the description. And for more content just like this, make sure that you're subscribed to our YouTube channel.